Hi everyone, it's Hannah from Hanjan Crochet, and today we're making this super easy beginner crochet hat together. Now, although I've called it the Easy Tweedy hat, and although it's a beginner hat, it does have some shaping in it, but it's done in a really easy way. That means you only need to know beginner stitches. We're going to be working side across in rows. That then means we can join the first row to the last row and just cinch in the top, and we're done. To make this hat, you're going to need to look in the description below where I have put the links for where you can find the written pattern, either on my blog or as an ad-free PDF. And wherever you decide to find it, you're going to find sizes all the way from baby through to large adult. So you can make one for absolutely anyone. So go and decide which size you're going to make and where you're going to source the pattern. And whilst you do that, also go and grab your materials as well. So they're all linked in the description below, but I will go through them now with you too. To make the hats, I decided to use Brava Tweed, which is a lovely acrylic yarn from We Crochet. It's a category 4 worsted weight yarn, and it comes in really, really lovely colours. And you don't need very much yarn at all to make any of these. In fact, I think it's only the very largest size that needs 2 balls. Everything else you can manage with just 1 ball of this yarn. Along with your yarn, you're going to need a 6mm crochet hook, or the hook that meets the gauge for you, and then a pair of scissors and a needle for your ends. If you would like to, of course, as well, you can add an optional pom-pom to the top of your hats, or you could make a yarn one yourself. And you can also, I like to finish my hats, I haven't done them yet here, but I like to put a little tag on mine, a little leather type tag on them just to finish them off completely. So go grab your supplies. I'm going to be making the child size version here today, but the principle works for whichever size you're making. So as long as you can work this one with me, then you'll be able to make any size that you like from the pattern. As I mentioned, all of our hats are worked back and forth in rows, and I thought I'd show you an almost completed one before we begin, so that hopefully makes a bit more sense about this shaping, because I know it can be quite intimidating. So this is the piece of fabric that I promise is going to seam together and become a hat. And what we need to do is, to get this lovely shaping, we're going to work different sized stitches in our rows. So part of our row is going to be the brim of the hat, part of our row is going to be the body of the hat, and then part of the row is going to be the crown of the hat. So you'll see the crown of the hat, this top section, is much thinner than the body section, and it pulls it in that it rucks in, and that's perfectly fine. So as you're making it, don't worry that it doesn't lay completely flat. That's exactly how it should be. And so what happens then is, when we have finished our funny looking piece of fabric, we can seam it together and then pull tight here at the top. We'll seam that in together, and that closes the crown for us. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense, but if it doesn't, don't worry, because I'm going to make it make sense. So as I say, I'm working the child size here, but you go with the numbers that relate to the size that you would like to make from the pattern. And to begin with, all of our hats are going to have a slip knot on the hook, and then start with a number of chains. So for the size I'm making, I'm going to chain 28. And then when you've got the number of chains that you need, we are going to start working back along here, along our chains, and I'm going to work into the back bump. So I just swivel slightly, and then I'm going to work a single crochet in that second chain from the hook that we have. So a single crochet just goes in there, and then I'm also going to work a single crochet in the next 3. But that number will be different for different sizes, so just check what you need to do for the size you're making. And those single crochet stitches are going to be the brim of our hat, this bottom section here. Now we need to work the stitches for the body of the hat, and they're going to be half double crochet stitches in a number of stitches up until we need to work the stitches for the crown. So for the size I'm making, I need to do 16 half double crochet. So we work into the next back bump of the chain, and we work a half double crochet. So that's 1, and then we're going to do 16 of those. And there's 2, And I will say, if you're a complete beginner and you're trying this pattern, this is the hardest row. I always think it's really mean starting with chains, isn't it, in pretty much every pattern, because they're the hardest things to work into. But I promise, once you get the hang of it, you'll be absolutely fine. So get through this row with me, and it will be so much easier and much more fun after this. So 16, I've completely lost count now. And then once you've done those half double crochet stitches, we've got to the end of our row, and we're going to need to work slip stitches in the rest of them. So for this size, I've got 6 slip stitches to work now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so that, when I get the last one in, will be our first row complete. And at the end of the first row, we turn, and now we're going to chain 1, and we do that at the end of every row, and that doesn't count as a stitch. And now we're going to be working for these slip stitches into the back loop only. So turn your stitches so that you can see the V at the top of them, and we're going to be working a slip stitch into each of these slip stitches. So I've got 6 of them, but however many you have for the size that you're making, you work a slip stitch into them. And now I've got to my half double crochet stitches, and I'm going to work a half double crochet into them. So each of the rows we have matching stitches. So slip stitches go into slip stitches, half double crochet go into half double crochet, and then at the end of the row here we're going to have single crochet going into single crochet. So now I've arrived to my single crochet stitches, and we're going to work a single crochet in the back loop only of each of these stitches. So remember, we have the top of our stitches facing us, and we have the back of the loop here, the back loop, sorry, here, and we have the front loop here. So go into that back loop, and do a single crochet into each one. I don't know what's happening with my words today. Now, as an important note, for the last stitch of each of these rows for the single crochets, if you wanted to, you can work into the full part of the stitch. It's entirely up to you. It just gives you a slightly snugger headband and brim that I quite like. So do that if you would like to, or you can work into the back loop. It's entirely up to you. And then at the end of that second row, we are ready to turn. And now we are going to chain 1, and we are going to work matching stitches, remember. So we're going to work the back loop only, single crochet stitches. So the same number that we had on the row before. We've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so now we're at our half double crochet stitches. So we're going to work a half double crochet in each of the half double crochets from the row below. And then we've arrived at our slip stitches, and so we're going to work into the back loop only of these slip stitches all the way until the end. So a slip stitch into a slip stitch, and that completes row 3. So now we're going to turn, and row 4 is going to be our last repeat. And then once you've done that, you'll know everything you need to know. So we're going to begin by chaining 1, and then we're going to slip stitch in the back loop only of each of these slip stitches. And in fact, we're going to completely just repeat what we've done for row 2 here. And then we arrive at our half double crochet stitches, and we're going to put a half double crochet in each of those. And then we've got to our single crochet stitches, so we're going to work into the back loop only up until your optional last stitch, where you can either work in the back loop or into the full part of the stitch there. And that's row 4 complete. Now that's everything that you need to know to make the rest of the hat. So you're going to repeat rows 3 and rows 4 for as many times as it tells you in the pattern or for as many times as you would like to reach the circumference. So when it's laid out flat, that will be the circumference of the hat for you. So all the details are obviously in the pattern for if you're meeting the gauge, but if you want to do it by measurements, then you can absolutely do that too. So work the number of rows that you need to for the size that you're making, and then meet me back here and I will show you on my almost completed one how we seam up the side and pull in the crown. Okay, so once you have all the rows done that you need to, we are going to simply grab our last row that I have here, and we're going to match it up with our first row that we have here, and we're just going to seam all the way along here. So to do this, I normally chain one to get myself going, because then you can see what you're actually doing, and then into this first stitch that we have there, and then into the first stitch of the foundation chain as it was, but of row 1, we are going to then yarn over and pull through to join them with a slip stitch, and then you just do exactly the same for each of the stitches all the way along. So we just go into that next stitch, into the corresponding stitch of the first row, yarn over and pull through. Just take your time and make sure that you match the stitches up. Now with all of those stitches seamed, we are ready to break our yarn, but make sure you give yourself a really good long tail that you can then seam the crown with. So pull that end through and then grab your needle. So pop your yarn through your needle there, ready to seam. And then I find it useful to put my hand actually into here, because what we want to do is close this top that we have here. And the best way for doing this, I find, is just to scoop it through each of these kind of ridges that pop out at us here. So then take it nice and steadily through and just work your way around. Now when you get back to the start, give it a good old tug down, and you'll see that for these smaller sizes that we have here, that probably is all that you'll need to do, and then you can just over sew to make sure that it joins together. But on the larger sizes, because you will have worked more rows, your hole will be bigger in the center here. So you might need to find that you need to go around a few more times just to close it tightly shut. But don't worry about that. You can just go as many times as you need to make sure that it's secure. And then bearing in mind that this is now going to be the inside of your hat. We've got the wrong side of it facing us now. If you want to add a pom-pom, if you either add a snap one, or I have ones on little elastic bands, I often now use this tail and pop it through the center here so that it comes up to the right side facing, and then you can attach your pom-pom with it here. But if you're not doing that and not using that, then obviously this tail, hide this tail on the inside of your hat, weave it in. So once you've added your pom-pom, or not, as you like, and weaved in your ends, that is that. I really hope you've enjoyed making this super quick and easy crochet hat with me. I love to see all the things that you make from my designs, so do come and find me on social media if you make one or two, or however many you make, and I will see you again soon.